And Myanmar society is also very religious. The good thing is you can relieve when you have something injustice. But if you blame your karma or if you blame your God for any injustice you face in your life, you will never try to have a justice.
Hello and welcome to episode 51 of What's Happening in Myanmar, a weekly show from the Frontier Myanmar podcast family. I'm your host, Luke Corman. It's Friday, October 31. That means this show has been running for a year now. So thanks to everyone who's tuned in every week. And I hope that the podcast has helped you keep on top of, some of the big news in Myanmar. We can't get to it all, and there's plenty more today. Major peace and conflict updates, the ASEAN summit review, and some more from the elections. We'll also speak with Aung Khant, who's coordinator of the Myanmar Freedom of Religion or Belief Network, FoRB, about religious freedom in Myanmar over the last 5 years of military rule. But without further ado, let's get stuck into the three important developments in the news this week. First, the 47th ASEAN Summit, that's the Summit for the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, has concluded this week with the group releasing a statement saying that the end of violence and the start of inclusive dialogue in Myanmar must occur before any election. And the bloc reaffirmed its commitment to the 5-point consensus, which revolutionaries, analysts, commentators, diplomats, just about everyone on this show has agreed is ineffectual. As anticipated last week, at the summit, the bloc agreed to task senior officials to deliberate on a proposal to appoint a long-term ASEAN Special Envoy on Myanmar. This would ensure continuity in the bloc's engagement with the country, but how long that deliberation will take is anyone's guess. The current ASEAN Special Envoy on Myanmar, Othman Hashim, is scheduled to step down when Malaysia hands over the rotating ASEAN chair to the Philippines in January. Skipping Myanmar in the order of rotating chairs should be noted. Second, in election updates, there's plenty of them. And as covered in Frontier's daily briefing newsletter on Tuesday, unnamed diplomatic sources told the AFP media agency that ASEAN will not send observers to monitor the military's planned so-called elections. Of course, the ASEAN bloc deliberated on that question over the weekend, and Malaysian Foreign Minister Muhammad Hassan said on October 13 that ASEAN member states would collectively decide whether to send observers, rather than states deciding bilaterally. Of course, there was speculation that member states like Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam may send observers. On the sidelines of the summit, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres told journalists that it's unlikely the military's elections would be free or fair. Quote, "I don't think anyone believes they'll contribute to a solution to Myanmar's problem," he said. But of course, these so-called elections will contribute to a continuation of military rule in Myanmar by another name. And more details about that came to light this week with the military's Union Election Commission, the UEC, making several announcements. The second phase of the election for 100 of Myanmar's 330 townships will now be taking place on January 11, after the first phase on December 28. The second phase townships include several where the military has only recently reasserted control, such as Madaya and Damoso. Given the election is being held in 3 phases at 2-week intervals, the final phase will likely occur on January 25. The UEC also announced that it will allow domestic and foreign media to cover this election in accordance with existing laws. Domestic media must submit a letter of authorization from their outlet to apply for accreditation. International media must apply through the Ministry of Information, which will scrutinise and endorse eligible outlets and individuals. All these restrictions ensure that there won't be anything resembling a free reporting environment surrounding these elections. The last announcement by the UEC, spending limits for election candidates are being doubled from 15 million Myanmar Kyat to 30 million. The maximum a candidate could spend on their campaign in the 2020 elections was 10 million Kyat. These spending cap increases are likely to account for the rampant inflation of the kyat since the military seized power in 2021 and has failed to competently handle the deteriorating economy. And on that campaigning, well, this week marked the beginning of the official campaign period. The military's Union Solidarity and Development Party, the USDP, held rallies in Yangon and Naypyidaw, showing off the new campaign slogan, Stronger Myanmar. The military, in all its strength, has restricted, essentially banned, other political parties from holding rallies and street processions due to supposed security concerns. As discussed on several episodes of this podcast, the campaigning is really just a formality, with a USDP national victory assured. Yesterday, CDM soldier, Sue Do, published a column in the Irrawaddy media outlet listing several of the military generals that will be or have shed their uniforms to contest the military's elections as members of the USDP, some of them running unopposed in their selected constituencies. This pattern of generals retiring to become party members has been ongoing for decades in Myanmar. The link to that piece is in the show notes. And now leaving the elections behind, the third major development this week. After months of speculation and denials by the Ta'ang National Liberation Army, the TNLA, this week, on the eve of the second anniversary of Operation 1027, the TNLA finally signed a ceasefire agreement with the Myanmar military. The TNLA ceded control of Mogok and Mongmit towns in exchange for the military ceasing all attacks on remaining TNLA-held territory. The ceasefire was brokered by China's Special Envoy for Asian Affairs, Deng Xijun, and it was agreed to at talks in Kunming, Yunnan. As we've been covering, the TNLA has been steadily losing the towns that it took during the second phase of Operation 1027. It retreated from Nangcho in July, and then Jalme and Sipor earlier this month. The ceasefire and the ceding of Mogok and Mongmit could stymie further losses for the TNLA, but it has devastated the wider Spring Revolution and anti-coup resistance movement. The TNLA especially worked closely with the Mandalay People's Defence Force, and other PDFs were also involved in the wildly successful Operation 1027. That operation, remember, at its peak, even looked like threatening military strongholds Punalwin and Mandalay. Several PDFs released statements expressing their ongoing commitment to the struggle against military rule in the wake of the TNLA announcement, which will be reshaping Northern Shan State in the weeks and months to come before and after the elections, no doubt. So that's the news, but I wanted to quickly ask you, are you a Frontier Myanmar member? If you nodded your head with satisfaction, thank you so much. Your support helps Frontier's journalists do what they do best. If you shook your head, well, don't worry, there's still time. The price is fair, and you'll have access to everything you need to stay on top of what's really happening in Myanmar. Daily briefing, media monitoring, political insider newsletters, feature stories, and access to exclusive events. Your engagement is important to us and to a freer and better informed public debate in and about Myanmar. Now, back to the show. So this past Monday was International Religious Freedom Day, which commemorates the original signing of the International Religious Freedom Act in the United States. It commits the US to incorporate religious freedom into its foreign policy and condemn violations of religious freedom around the world. To commemorate the day this week, the Myanmar Freedom of Religion or Belief Network, the FoRB Network, launched a new summary report titled Short Analysis of the Violations of the Right to Freedom of Religion or Belief in Myanmar Since the 2021 Coup. And to talk about this report and religious freedom in Myanmar over the last 5 years in general, I'm delighted to have Aung Khant, coordinator of the Myanmar Freedom of Religion or Belief Network. Hello, Aung Khant. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Luke.
My pleasure. Now, Aung Khant, could you please let us know a bit about the network that you coordinate, the Myanmar Freedom of Religion or Belief Network, FoRB. That's often abbreviated to FoRB, Freedom of Religion or Belief.
Yeah, thank you. We usually call it FoRB Network. So it was established shortly after the coup, 2021 coup, by the individuals and organizations working on the freedom of religion of belief, including me. I used to work on freedom of expression and cross-cutting issues between the freedom of expression and the right to freedom of religion, because I also founded an organization. It focused on the freedom of expression. But after the coup, the people working on the FoRB issues, we gather and we started that network. I am one of the founder members, but I'm not the founder of that network. A friend of mine founded that network. That network means to be a loose network because many of the individual members and organizations are stay inside Burma and they are working human rights issue under the disguise of something like taxi drivers or something. So they are also members of the minority communities like Muslims or Christian. So they are at high risk just because of their identity. They can be targeted anytime. So it is better for them to keep low profile and doing human rights things under the disguise of something. So our network is like a loose network because we don't formalize it because we have a very, very great concerns about the security for the members of the network. So we do knowledge sharing regarding the FoRB issue. So like sometimes about the hate speech, sometimes about the blasphemy, sometimes about the enclave of a religious minority group in Burma, like Hindu people or something. We also share strategies, like especially advocacy strategies to promote freedom of religion and belief at the regional level or at the international level. So sometimes we meet with the international stakeholders, including the UN bodies. We informally met UN Special Reporter on the freedom of religion or belief 2 years ago, and we also informally met IIII. Yeah, that's it. I don't want to take so much time introducing my network.
And this new short analysis by the FoRB Network was timed to launch on International Religious Freedom Day, which was this past Monday.
Yeah, we intentionally set the date of the report on that day because we want to observe the International Religious Freedom Day. So we planned it about 2 months ago. We invited the media colleagues. We also invited the human rights defenders. We shared the invitation only among the trusted community because of the security. So in that report is the first report of our network, but we, the members of the network, already worked on the research on the FoRB issue. Like, for example, me, I authored 3 reports for some of the international organizations on the FoRB issue, but this is the very official first report of our network under the name of our network. Yeah.
Okay, and for our listeners who might benefit, first from a quick overview of religious freedom in Myanmar, could you talk a bit about that, maybe relevant laws and the minority religions in the country?
Myanmar has a very diverse society in terms of religion, of ethnicity. But the 2008 constitution, the National Unity Government announced the abolishment of that constitution. But okay, let's say at the time, the military regime still uses that constitution as the official constitution of Burma. And so the constitution recognized the 5 official religion of Myanmar, like Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam, Hindu, and animism. So, which means it does not recognize any other religions as the official religion of Myanmar. It's the constitutional provision. So, even among the recognized 5 religions, Buddhism has a very special status. The Constitution says it recognizes the spiritual position of Buddhism because the majority of the population follows Buddhism. So obviously everyone knows, everyone who is familiar, there are so many communal violence and a state-sponsored oppression and discrimination and persecution of the religious minority. I found a very significant difference between the oppression of Buddhism and oppression of other religions. The one difference is when the state-sponsored oppression happens against Buddhism, it is because of that Buddhist people or monks pro-democracy movement, like they will arrest a Buddhist monk because of his criticism of the military regime or any government. But when it comes to oppression of other religion, it is because of their identity. So like you are a Christian, if you are a Christian and Kachin man, you can be targeted because of your identity, arrested or persecuted under the accusation that you are related to the KIA. KIA is the Kachin Independence Army, an organization that is resisting the military government.
Thinking about constitutions, Aung Khant, independent Burma and now Myanmar, it's had a few constitutions over the years. So I wonder, how does the current military drafted one from 2008, how does it rate compared to the others? Has it always been like this?
Yeah, thank you for that question. In the past, I think we could say one of the previous constitution is better than the current constitution, because maybe 47 or 74 constitution, it doesn't say, does not recognize the exact limited religions as the official religions of a country. But current constitution, 2008 constitution, it recognizes the 5 religions, only 5. It is, I think, but on the other hand, the current constitution on the paper, it guarantees the right to freedom of religion or belief. But in another constitutional provision, it limits the number of the official religion of a country. So under the international standards, a state should not have a state religion or should not have an official religion. If a state wants to recognize a religion, it has to recognize all of the religions, any practice, or maybe any interpretational practices of a religion. So I think Myanmar, in overall, Myanmar does not have the best constitution. But compared to some of the previous constitutions, 1947 and 1974, the current constitution is like, it pretends to give you the right to freedom of religion, but in literally it doesn't give. Yeah.
Okay, and what about maybe other laws on the books that are used to interfere with religious freedom?
Actually, we have a religious conversion law. Officially, anyone in Myanmar has a right to convert their religion. But in practice, there are so many limitations. It doesn't make sense if someone has to apply to convert their religion, because it is the thing in your heart. So it is not a state issue. In the procedures, you have to follow so many measures that promote only Buddhism, like NRC card, national identity card. This is not my personal experience, but a friend of mine who is Muslim, he told me when his daughter was born, so they go to their birth certification department. So the department asks him, what is the religion of your daughter? So his daughter was just an infant at the time. It is, nonsense. So, and so I think in conclusion, Myanmar has so many laws that prohibit and that interfere with the right to religions, freedom of religions. But there's also some laws that it seems to promote and guarantee right to religion of belief. But in practice, the state and the judicial or the administrative departments and the police, they make so many limit for someone to exercise or practice the religion of belief they want. Yeah.
That was wonderful. All of that was great context, Aung Khant. Thank you. So let's talk about religious freedom since 2021, the military coup. Now the military, it's back, trying to rule the country after a brief period of taking a bit of a back seat from 2011 to its 2021 coup. Now the military routinely attacks civilians, crushes political dissent, steals public resources, much more. But it does all this from a particular position. It privileges Burma, Buddhist ideology and nationalism in its efforts to stay in power. I imagine that this plays into your short analysis of religious freedom since the coup. Please tell us about your report.
Yeah, thank you. That would be a long answer. So, first of all, that short analysis was a part of a more comprehensive report we intend to publish next year. So, because next year, February 1st, will be another anniversary of the coup, even though we don't want to celebrate it. So, that short analysis, we highlight the overview and the trends and the patterns of the violation, but we also focus on the death of the faith leaders. So, according to our findings, 97 faith leaders from the different religions were killed. So the pattern of that includes torture and arbitrary gunfire, artillery fire, or airstrikes, and sometimes stabbing, or murder. So 75 deaths out of 97 deaths were attributed to the military junta. Sometimes it also got assistance from the PUSODI. PUSODI is one of the proxy entities and like vigilantes for the Myanmar military. Sometimes it also got assistance from the BGF, Border Guard Forces. It is also a proxy militia of the Myanmar military. So, like I said before, many of the Buddhist religious leaders were killed, but the main reasons of their deaths is like the area bombardment on the civilian population or indiscriminate and deliberate attacks on the civilian population. Many of the Christian and Muslim faith leaders' deaths was because of their identity. For example, there are only 9 Christian religious leaders killed, low amount compared to the Buddhist religious leader. But most of that 9 Christian leaders were killed because of their identity, like they were arrested and then they were forcibly taken to the interrogation center. We even noticed the concealment of dead body. Their families did not even have the dead body of that religious leader. So they have to make a funeral without a dead body. So it is really, really severe violations of the human rights. We also found the damage and the destruction of the religious sites and worship places. So, but we cannot provide a precise number of the religious sites at the moment because we are still processing. And we also found in recent years, religious sites were increasingly targeted by the military junta. Most of the attacks are area bombardment. Most of the IDP, internally displaced people, most of the IDPs take refuge at the monastic buildings or at the churches. So when they are staying at the churches or at the monastery, and the monasteries and the churches were attacked by the military's bombardment. So a lot of people also died. In our database, we just count the number of the religious buildings rather than the number of attacks, because some churches were attacked multiple times. For example, in Tantalan, Chin State, Tantalan is one of the worst scenarios of the full violation in Myanmar after the coup, because it was, I think, attacked by the ASEAN at least 30 times by the military. So many of the Christian churches in Tantalan were banned or sometimes, I think, ransacked by the military soldiers. So we also saw sometimes the military soldiers use landmine. They put the landmines near the religious buildings like monasteries. So and some of the religious leaders were also injured by the explosion of landmines, and their hands and legs were amputated. Yeah. As the other kinds of other patterns of full violation, we also noticed that the widespread restrictions on the religious rituals and diverse interpretation of religion. For example, in Yangon, in Chepida, there are also Christian people. So maybe they migrated from the other conflict areas, like maybe Chin or something. So they try to organize praise and worship weekly. So as they do not have a church in Chepida, maybe there are some churches, but they do not have a church in their neighborhood. So they try to organize an assembly to make praise and worship. So, but the ward administrator or the village administrators came to their neighborhood and restrict them not to do that. And also in the Rakhine State situation, Christian people are required to apply for the permission to go to church, and they have to provide the exact number of the prayers, the number of the people who will attend the church, and the time of the worship. So another one significant issue is patriarchy is very, very strong and prolonged in Myanmar, in Burmese society. So we also found a gender-based discrimination in religious community, because the Tangka Mahanayaka, Sangha Mahanayaka, which is the highest body that set the monastic regulations and that judge any disputes regarding the monastic issues. So it is controlled by the 47 members of that Tangka Mahanayaka, and all of the 47 members are men. They are Buddhist monks. So female monks are not allowed. So a nun, Tilashin, a nun was a nunnery, a Facebook page of a nunnery posted a photo in which a nun was holding a bowl and receiving the offerings like alms. So after posting that photo, that nun was disrobed by the authority, including the monastic authority, and she was deported from that area. She has to leave. And another one is it is really related to politics as well, because another one is the restrictions on the movement and based on their ID card. So after the 2021 coup, there are many places that were controlled by the local group and local administrative units, like in northern Shan State, or in Anya region, Central Burma region, or in southern Burma, like Dawei or Pei. So one example is in northern Shan State is really complicated. So the Kokand an organization and TNLA, Ta'an People's Organization. So they try to issue an ID card for the local people to differentiate the local people and the non-local people. So at the time, they are collecting the data to make households for the local people, and they also try to issue the ID card for the local people. So in that area, some of the communities are not belonging to the Ta'an ethnicity. Maybe they are Gorkha people from the Indian descent, and maybe they are Litsu people. The NSC card and local ID card also related to the recruitment for the ethnic organization. So this is also cause some security risks for the people in that area. So which is really intersectional case related to the FoRB and the ethnicity issues. So another section in our report highlights the situation of Rohingya. So Rohingya people are, they are one of the most persecuted communities in the world. They are right to citizen and their right to fundamental freedoms are still denied. Under the military regime, there will be no a voluntary and dignified repatriation and return of the Rohingya people from the IDP and refugee camps in Bangladesh to Myanmar. There will be no chance under the military regime. So that's the summary of our short analysis.
That's all amazing detail, and I know that there are so many more examples you could give. I framed my question there in terms of the military's Burma Buddhist nationalism. There's actually quite a bit of conflation in Myanmar between ethnicity, language, and religion, which can make it kind of hard to attribute oppression, to being because of, or on the terms of religion alone. Do you think that, this is a bit of a big question, do you think that the coup is making Myanmar more religious or less religious on the whole?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I was always thinking about that. So, okay. In my lived experience, so I was asked about my ethnicity and religion many times, and that questions may be linked to their, their prejudgment. So many people think I am when they meet me, I am not a Burmese, not a Burma because of my look. Yeah. So when I said I am Burma, so maybe their prejudgment might change. So and when it comes to marriage, so the communities, the family members, they always ask about the religion. So I think Myanmar social society is very religious, and according to the research, the world is more religious, getting more religious, even though there are a lot of atheists and there are a lot of non-religion people like us. But the world is more and more religious. And Myanmar society is also very religious. I think there are good things and bad things. The good thing is you can relieve when you have something injustice. But it is also the bad thing. If you blame your karma or if you blame your God for any injustice you face in your life, you will never try to have a justice. But so I think it's also good, it's also bad. It just depends on how will you respond to an injustice. Myanmar people's thinking is very related to religion, and they also take blasphemy very seriously. So according to my finding after the coup, there are so many blasphemy charges, and Myanmar criminalizes the blasphemy. So which means if you insult any god, especially Buddha, you can be jailed at least 6 months to 2 years. So people believe people put their belief system, and they also try to judge others people believe by their prejudgment sometimes. Another thing I noticed after the coup is I saw two emerging trends. One is more religious, one is less religious. The more religious means people try to pray and people try to believe the suffering they are facing is because of their past karma and because of their past life, or maybe because of the God is destined that. On the other side, another emerging pattern is less religious. People do not believe in any religion anymore. You can criticize a god or you can criticize a religion, but we should not be radical. We should not be harmful to others' freedom of thought. So this is the problem. And races, ethnicity, and religions are very intertwined in Myanmar society. Like I said before, if like for example, if you are from a community which is a Christian, like for example, if you are from an ethnic community, majority of that community is Christian. So when you try to marry someone who is Buddhist, you can be challenged by that community because many minority people do not have fundamental rights. So the one thing they have to grab strongly is their identity. So they try to grab their religious identity or ethnic identity because they do not have anything to grab or hold. So Muslim people are like this. They do not have fundamental rights, or they do not have the equal rights like the Buddhist people have. So the identity is the only one thing they have to hold. Sometimes that practice may take you to something like interference with some other people.
Yeah. Now, my last question is about the March earthquake. With its epicenter, it was in Sagaing, but it really devastated the city of Mandalay also. And the Muslim community in Mandalay suffered disproportionately. Many mosques were destroyed. Of course, other religious sites, Buddhist monasteries and stuff, they were also damaged. But discrimination against Muslims is going to make it harder for that community to rebuild or bounce back. So how does military rule fit into the lack of religious freedom in the context of this earthquake, this terrible natural disaster?
Thank you. It was also one of the sessions in our report. So in the normal stage, in the normal situation, churches and the mosques were not permitted to construct, especially Muslim. So when the earthquake hit the central Burma, it is also I think it is the last Friday of the Ramadan. So Muslim holy month. So there were a lot of Muslim people who were feared that inside the many mosques because the mosques are not very strong. Many of the mosques in Mandalay were constructed since in the time of colonial time. So some of the mosques were I think more than 100 or 150 years old. So the Muslim communities never had a chance to maintain that mosque because of the state oppression and the community's oppression as well. So because of that situation, many of the churches and many of the mosques were strong enough to survive the earthquake. So yeah, obviously Myanmar is a Buddhist majority country. So there are many Buddhist buildings and Buddhist sites hit by the earthquake, and Mandalay is a Buddhist prominent area. So yeah, we saw so many Buddhist buildings collapsed and hit by the earthquake. But we also saw there are many Muslim people and there are many Muslim religious buildings hit by the earthquake. So and they were not. They are still trying to get the permission to rebuild. So when it comes to reconstruction and maintenance of the mosques, the state, the authority, the military junta restricts them to build at the same size and the same shape that it used to have in the past. So many of the mosques were constructed in the past about 100 or 200 years ago. So the population size was smaller at the time compared to the current size. So the space in the mosques is not sufficient. And we also found one mosque in Sagaing region and Sagaing Township, Sagaing City. That was in the disputes of the ownership between the police authority and the trustee of the mosque. So it was seized and it was confiscated by the military regime after the earthquake. So I think there will be many other examples across the country. I think more than 100 mosques were hit by the earthquake.
Yeah, of course, everybody knows the earthquake this year, coming after the coup a few years ago and the pandemic was just a terrible blow. And thank you for giving that insight into how it's affected religious minorities. So, Aung Khant, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the program today. I appreciate it so much. Thank you. And I look forward to your network's full report when it comes out next year. Cheers.
Thank you so much.
And that's it for another episode. Thank you for listening, everyone. One special note before signing off. Today is the last day of news production at Radio Free Asia, RFA. That includes their Burmese language service. Founded nearly 3 decades ago, RFA has been a reliable alternative for people in Myanmar fed up with military propaganda and state-owned media. RFA actually won 2 Murrow Awards, which is a US journalism prize, for its series on youth coping with the aftermath of the 2021 coup, showing just how widely lauded the agency was for its Myanmar coverage outside of the country also. The RFA will be sorely missed as shifting US national interests continue to transform the world we live in. Until next week, farewell and take care.